Hey guys, Rico Reviews here. So ironically enough, it is Wednesday. It is not White Rice Wednesday. I bet we're all dealing with the withdrawals of the amazing season that was Survivor Winners at War. So I wanted to start making more Survivor videos talking about different contestants or different aspects of the game. And today I wanted to focus on the Edge of Extinction and comparing it to Redemption Island. So what's the same about Redemption Island and the Edge of Extinction is that it gives people who were voted out of the game a second chance. With Redemption Island, you're voted out, you basically live the same as you would on the island. You have to build a shelter and you are provided very little food. When there is two people, they will compete in a duel. Whoever wins the duel goes back to Redemption Island. Whoever loses the duel, that's it, their game's done, finished. I remember there being observers from each tribe, I guess to kind of see like how the players on Redemption Island's progress is. And then at two predetermined times during the game, they would have the duel that would bring them back into the game once at the merge. And then I read for Redemption Island it was a final four. With the Edge of Extinction, you still have that aspect that if you're voted off you have a second chance, but with the Edge of Extinction you don't have any supplies. Like, you're basically fending for yourself. There is duels on the Edge of Extinction, however they're not, nobody really knows the gameplay other than the players on the Edge of Extinction. They have certain challenges, like we've seen, like the log challenge and everything like that, trying to find clues to get advantages on the Edge of Extinction. They also have two predetermined spots where you can make it back in the game. Once at the merge and then once at Final Five. And the difference between those two is that Redemption Island, you're constantly having duels, whereas Edge of Extinction, there's only two times to get back. Well, I mean, there is two times to get back in the game on each island, but I guess what I'm trying to say with Edge of Extinction, there's only two duels, where Redemption Island, there's multiple ones. I've heard people complain about both because they believe that once a player is voted off, then that's it, their game should be done. Me personally, I like the idea of players getting a second chance to play the game. Like, I loved Cambodia, Second Chance. I love how we got a say in who got to play that season, and I love seeing people get a second chance. I mean, I think that's why people love returning seasons, because they like to see some of the players that they wanted to win before make it back on again and try to have some redemption, with the exception of Winners at War, because that season was all winners. So I definitely do see the negative aspect of it, because they don't want somebody who was voted off pre-merge to win the game. Now, we look at the two seasons that they had Edge of Extinction. They had the first season, Edge of Extinction, we have Chris Underwood. He was a pre-merger, and he made it back in the game at the second and final duel. He realized that the odds of him winning were stacked against him, and he saw the biggest contender to win the game was Devon's. So in order to I guess the only way he thought that he had a chance to win was to do what Dominic couldn't do in Ghost Island. He gave up his immunity necklace to Julie, and then he decided to take Devon's at the fire making challenge, which is controversial. The move is controversial, but also freaking amazing at the same time, because honestly, with immunity, you're safe. So you could potentially be giving up your $1 million spot. Like, the immunity, you're guaranteed. So it is a big risk to give up your immunity necklace and go against somebody. And I definitely think that it definitely worked in Chris's favor because he won the challenge. And had he not went up against Devon's, I still think Chris would have won, but I feel like the votes between Chris and Gavin would have been closer. I definitely don't know in that I do not know in that scenario who Chris would have taken with him, or who he would have had go to fire against Devon's. I think regardless, Devon's would have went to fire. So then we look at Natalie on Winners at War. She was voted off first, and she also made it back in at the second and final duel to get back in the game. We saw Natalie knew that she was on the outs. The difference between the season and the first season with Edge of Extinction is that this time they had the fire tokens aspect of it, and it almost gave the people on the Edge of Extinction more of an advantage, because what people didn't realize is that if you were buying these advantages, they were going to somebody else. So Natalie was finding all these advantages on the Edge of Extinction, and she was able to get an idol. We saw that she was able to get 3 advantages in that challenge, and had the fire tokens not have been an aspect in this, Natalie, I still think, would have done well in the challenge, because as people have pointed out, she's a beast, but I definitely feel like it definitely could have been somebody else's game. And she had to work with what she had, which basically she was like telling people that Tony is who everyone's talking about on the Edge of Extinction, and she wanted to get the alliance of Ben, Sarah, and Tony out. And for Natalie, she ended up winning the final immunity like Chris did. But the difference between Natalie and Chris is Natalie decided not to go up against Tony in fire. And a lot of the castaways, and we even saw Rob said it in the episode, that you wanted to play a perfect game. Why did you not take Tony out? Like, she had the opportunity to. And I think that for Natalie, she knew that she didn't feel confident enough that she could beat Tony, and even like, it's too big of a risk. And I definitely don't feel like she was secure and not felt secure enough in the game, so she wanted to keep her immunity so she would stay there. And she sent Tony and Sarah to make fire, and Tony ended up winning the fire making challenge and won the season. So then you have to think for yourself, what happens if Natalie had won? I mean, Tony in any scenario, I think, would have won regardless. But let's look at it this way. Natalie was the first one voted off at Winners at War. She, like Chris, came back at the final challenge. They also won final immunity. So then you have a scenario where they had the Edge of Extinction for 2 seasons, and potentially you could have had 2 people from the Edge of Extinction win each time they had the Edge of Extinction twist. And it's almost like an advantage to be on the Edge of Extinction. I mean, Chris's season was different because he didn't have the fire tokens, but if the fire tokens is going to be a permanent thing, I don't know how they're going to utilize fire tokens without the whole Edge of Extinction aspect, so that's going to be a whole different ballpark. But with the Edge of Extinction, I definitely think players, had they know where the tokens were going to, I definitely think they would have thought twice between buying an advantage or buying a disadvantage to another castaway, because they didn't know that them buying these things were going to players on the Edge of Extinction, hence bettering their game. That's why players were able to get advantages in the game, how people were able to buy idols. And had Natalie not have accumulated so many fire tokens and gotten those advantages and was able to get two idols, she wouldn't have had an idol going into the final, was it final 5? Final 6. Final 6. She wouldn't have had an idol going in, and she would have been sent home. So, removing the fire tokens aspect, Natalie would have been sent home at final 6, and we could have had... Like I said, if Tony makes it to the final 3 in any scenario, I definitely think he would have won. But I definitely think that with the tokens in the game, it gives somebody... At least on the Edge. Again, we don't know if they're going to use the fire tokens again and how that's going to work out going into the game. Because with the Edge of Extinction, you had no idea who was sending you the advantage or disadvantage. In the game, they might be able to put 2 and 2 together and figure out who sent the advantage. By, I guess... They could potentially ask another castaway, hey, how many tokens do you have? Oh, you don't have any? Then how did I get this? I don't know. But the other thing about the Edge of Extinction that's also controversial is the fact that you almost have an advantage because all the people that are on the Edge of Extinction will become the jury members. So you're spending all that time with the jury. So the Edge already has... an edge on the other castaways because they're spending all that time with the jury. So they're building those relationships and doing great jury management and everything. So it almost makes it more likely for somebody on the Edge of Extinction to win solely because the people on the jury have spent that time with them and they got to see their gameplay versus somebody who's been in the game X amount of days. I've also heard people don't like it because, like I mentioned, they don't think it's fair for somebody who was voted off first to win the game versus somebody who's actually played the game. With the Edge of Extinction, I still believe you're playing the game, but a different kind of game. With Redemption Island and Edge of Extinction, I don't think with Redemption Island you really had the intensity that Edge of Extinction have. I definitely think it's a different kind of game out there. Now, let's not talk about the fire tokens in this scenario, but minus the fire tokens, the Edge of Extinction, you're kind of playing a more social game. I mean, even in the game of Survivor, you're still playing a social game, but the Edge of Extinction, you basically remove, like, all the physical challenges minus the few opportunities you have to get advantages. But you're basically stuck there with people for X amount of days, and you have to basically, I don't know, either, like, basically form relationships with these people, and you can be stuck with people you don't really like. I mean, that's true on any tribe on Survivor. And I feel like it's a lot harder mentally on the Edge of Extinction, whereas the game, you're in these brutal challenges and everything. With being in the game, you do have the perk of having a shelter, and you do have the opportunity to win, like, tarps or comfort items, or you could go on rewards and win food to boost yourself. With the fire tokens, you did have an opportunity to buy food if you wanted to. I think on the Edge of Extinction, most of them bought peanut butter. With we didn't really see too many people use their tokens in the game. I know that Denise bought rice for everyone. I know, like, if an advantage was put in front of them, yeah, they bought it then, but I don't think we saw people actually go to a menu and say, okay, I want this. So you definitely didn't Um, so that makes it, again, and with Natalie's idol, one would think, well, they could come in the game with 2 or 3 idols and then they're secured to the final 4. Well, you can only have one idol going into the final challenge, and Natalie had a second idol, so she decided to potentially score a jury vote and give it an idol to Tyson, which worked in her favor because she did secure Tyson's vote. With the Edge, you did have the opportunity to quit at any time by raising the white sail, and with Redemption Island, I don't know. They didn't have the white sail like they did on Edge of Extinction, but I feel like it's like any game in Survivor, like you can quit anytime you want to. I mean, it's going to be frowned upon by the fandom, but you could basically quit. I feel like with the Edge, the quitting isn't like an official quit, you know what I mean? Because we did have 2 people quit. We had we had 2 people on the Edge of Extinction quit, and then we have 1 person from Winners at War that actually quit Edge of Extinction. And I know there's been talk like the question of, should quitting the Edge of Extinction by raising the white sail, should that count as an official quit? Me personally, I don't know what you guys think, but I definitely think it should be counted as quitting the game, because you have that choice. You have the opportunity to, you know, stick it out and everything. If the whole Edge thing wasn't an aspect, you'd still, well, you'd be gone if you're voted out. But I mean, would you have quit in the game if the whole Edge or Redemption Island aspect wasn't a factor into it? I mean, they do quit the game. It's like they could stick it out for how many days? I mean, I feel like when somebody quits the game on Survivor, a lot of people, and I feel this way too, that it's almost not fair when people quit the game, because that takes away a spot from somebody who wanted to be in the game and would have stuck it out for as many days as I would have been in the game, but they chose to quit. And it's a different element out there. It's a huge, brutal social game, so we don't know what goes on out there. But I definitely feel like, you know, if somebody quits, that could have went to somebody who would have stayed in the game longer. And quits became controversial enough that people didn't believe that people who quit the game should be placed on the jury. So now, ever since Survivor Nicaragua, if you quit the game, you're not going to the jury. So it's like nobody remembers quitters or anything like that. They're not well known. With the whole Edge of Extinction, I kind of get it more than quitting then, because with Sandra, we saw her in the challenges. She mostly sat out of the challenges. So could she have survived on Edge of Extinction? Yes. Could she have won the challenges? No. We saw her sit out of all of them. So we knew she was aware of the fact that she wasn't the best in challenges. So why would she stay so many days when she knows for a fact she's not going to win? So it almost makes sense for her to quit then, because she knows that she's not going to win. So why would she starve herself to and suffer all that emotional, mental toll that comes with the Edge for that many days, when it almost seems like for nothing, you know? So you could almost see why people quit on the Edge, but I still kind of cringe when I hear somebody quits I mean, I can make a whole other video about quitting the game, but I'm curious to know what you guys think of the Edge of Extinction and Redemption Island. I personally like to see people have a second chance, like I mentioned, but I definitely get where people are coming from, how it's controversial, how, well, it seems like, in a sense, it's only controversial if a pre-merger goes on Redemption or goes on Edge. More so, I've heard on the Edge. If a pre-merger makes it to the end, then it becomes controversial to them. But if they had played the game for X amount of days and they happen to get on the Edge of Extinction and they don't spend many days there, then it's not really controversial then. So, because they did, quote unquote, play the actual game. So I'm very curious to see what your thoughts are about the whole Edge of Extinction twist or Redemption Island twist. Would you guys like to see that happen in other seasons? Do you guys see them bringing back the Edge of Extinction? Feel free to comment down below. Hope you guys enjoyed my Survivor recap. Until next my Survivor recap. So used to that, right? Hope you guys enjoyed my video talking about the Edge of Extinction and Redemption Island. Until next time, stay regal.